You're listening to a podcast by the Center for Action and Contemplation. To learn more, visit cac.org.
Greetings. I'm Jim Finley.
And I'm Kirsten Oates.
Welcome to Turning to the Mystics.
Welcome, everyone, to Season 13 of Turning to the Mystics, where we'll be turning to Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. And I'm here with Jim to introduce you to Saint Thérèse. Welcome, Jim.
Yes, I'm looking forward to sharing her teachings with our listeners. Yeah.
And you have a way you like to invite us into understanding the mystic's life and spirituality, so I'll hand over to you, Jim.
Yes, as I always do. We'll begin by understanding who she was historically. It'll help us understand who she is spiritually as our guide to God. And so kind of a historical overview of her life. Therese was born in 1873 in France, where she lived until her death in 1897, 24 years of age. She was born into a large family. She was the youngest of 9 children. And by the time Therese was born, 3 of the younger siblings had already died in infancy and child death and so on. So she had 4 older sisters, so the 5 living children. And another contributing factor to her, in France at the time, the Catholics saw themselves as a faithful remnant to God in a world that had turned secular. So the kind of separation from the world and a kind of a piety, a devotional sincerity separate from the world. What's interesting is that Pope Leo XIII, at the time he was Pope when she was living, he wrote an encyclical inviting people to be more aware of God's presence in the world. And what's really interesting is that the present Pope, Pope Leo XIV, took Leo's name because of his emphasis on immigration and social justice and poverty. But for Therese, that hadn't really touched her. She was still very much in this kind of mindset that they lived in. Another indication of the piety of these 5 children is that all 4 of her older sisters entered the cloistered monastery. One sister entered the community of the Visitation, which is cloistered. And then the other 3 all entered the Discalced Carmelite house, was there in Paris. And what's interesting is then that this monastery of Discalced Carmelites that she entered was a reform of the Carmelite order that was founded by Saint Thérèse of Avila and Saint John of the Cross in Spain in the 15th century. So it was returning to more of a life of prayer, poverty, and simplicity. Also, previously we looked at Brother Lawrence, and he was a Discalced Carmelite lay brother, and you could kind of see the affinity between the 2 of them that way. When her sisters entered the Carmel, she felt very lonely, Therese says, because she felt very bonded to them, especially after their mother died. And then in prayer, when she was 14, she felt that God was calling her to enter the Carmel. And she asked her father if she could, and he gave permission. But the local bishop said no, said that she was too young. So there was a pilgrimage with her father to Rome. She was instructed that when the Pope would go by giving people blessings, that she was not to speak to the Pope, but instead showed you something about her personality, the forthrightness of her personality. She stepped out and told the Pope she wanted to enter the Carmelites with her sister. And the Pope said, if it's God's will, it will happen. And when the local bishop heard what the Pope said, the local bishop gave permission. And so Therese, then 1 year later, 15 years old, entered the cloistered monastery. When she had been living in the monastery at 15, when she was 22 years old, the prioress of the monastery, the superior, her also happened to be one of her older sisters, asked her to write the story of her soul. So that's how it came to be. And so the manuscript of the story of the soul is divided, has 3 parts to it. The first part and the longest part is the one that she first wrote when she was 22 years old. She took 1 year to write it. And so you get a lot of her core teachings there about her spiritual guidance about God in our life. At the end of that year, she reports that she was in her room at night, her cell. A mouthful of blood came up into her mouth from her lungs. And that's how she knew she had tuberculosis. And she also knew it was terminal. And she was going to die a year later. When she finished that first manuscript, a sister asked her to share her insights that she had on a retreat that she was on, and that's this manuscript B. is this retreat, and you get more insights into her and her teachings. And then there's a third manuscript that when she was dying, the prioress, who now happened to be another one of her older sisters who was elected prior, she asked her to keep writing. And you could see how she struggled to write it. So she died writing that third manuscript. And so those are the three parts of the volume. What's interesting about her is that at the time of her death, they wanted it released so the world would know about her teachings. The book was read, and by the time she was canonized, made a saint in 1925, the story of her soul had been translated into 20 languages, and by 1957, it was translated into 54 languages. In 1995, there was an international pilgrimage with her relics, with her body, all the major cities of the world. And thousands of people would come just to stand there as her relics went by. And more recently, Pope John Paul II named Therese a doctor of the church. This 24-year-old young woman is a doctor of the church. So what I want to look at here, is what is it that touches so many people? I want to share what touches me. I want to share it in a way that I hope that as the listeners are listening, it'll touch them too, so we can benefit from her teaching. So that's a sense of Therese in her life.
That's a beautiful overview. Thank you, Jim. Just delving a little deeper into her life. So I think her mother died when she was quite young. Is that correct? I think she was 4 years old when her mother died. And she struggled a little bit after that with feeling very sensitive and missing her mother.
Yes. There was a kind of a delicacy to her personality. In a way, it refined her sensitivity to grace. It also refined her sensitivity to emotions. So in her journal, she writes about that. She talks about what she learned in that. And
yes.
I want to add something too. It's her sensitivity to the emotions was the context in which she experienced God.
Yes.
That if she saw God's presence present in her emotions, and in her life. And that's one of the key aspects of her teachings.
Yes. You've often said, Jim, that when we go through traumatic things, we can often find a deeper sense of God's presence.
That's right. Exactly.
So she's testament to that. So after her mother died, one of the older sisters became like her new mother and took responsibility for her.
That's right.
And so she was very, very close to that sister for a while.
That's right. And that's why when she entered the convent, that's the sister that became prioress. So in her opening words of her book, she says, "To you, dear mother, who's my mother twice over." That is, you're my mother as my sister. You were a mother to me when I was little. And now that you're the prioress, you're Reverend Mother.
Yes.
That's how she makes that connection.
Beautiful. So sweet. Yes.
Yeah.
And then when that sister went off to the convent, she went through another wave of grief in her life.
That's right.
The younger sister stepped in and started to be her mother.
That's right. Another big thing about her, and I think for us too, is like the divinity of ordinariness. That she saw God's presence infusing the ordinariness of the unfolding of our days, like abandonment to divine providence of things. And that's how she learned about God. It's one of the things we'll be focusing on in the reflections for us.
Lovely. And she was quite spoiled in the household. She was quite a lot younger than the older sisters, and they all kind of doted on her and loved to see her smile. And so she was kind of babied for a number of years by all the older sisters.
She was. And to give an example, and we'll be focusing on this in the talks too, is that it's Christmas. And they're all gathered around delighting in her opening up the presents. And she's delighting in them delighting in her. And she goes upstairs and she hears her father say to her sisters, "Well, she's getting old enough now, this will be the last year." And she said when she heard that, she was so sad because she loved the thing. But she decided that when she came down the stairs, she didn't say a word. Because she decided that she didn't want to say something to put a shadow over their happiness that they were having. And so there you also see the emergence of a kind of interior maturity about her.
Yeah.
It's another aspect of her soul, really.
And compassion.
And compassion for other people, and empathy. There's something deeply childlike about spiritual maturity. And she kind of embodies that, I think.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about this kind of piety and what the culture was that she was growing up in.
I was very much immersed in the same thing, really. I grew up in Akron, Ohio in the 1940s, 1950. My mother was a very devout Catholic. So the whole idea of the Mass and the Eucharist and the Rosary and the Stations of the Cross. So in our home were pictures of the saints and crucifixes and the rosaries. And there was this devotional sense this way, like of the holiness of God in the holiness of the church, surrounded by a secular world. I think it was that kind of mentality.
So the whole family she grew up in and the community she grew up in had this deep devotion to the church and to God. And
That's right. As a matter of fact, when I entered the monastery and they had the Second Vatican Council, one of the big things in the Second Vatican Council was an openness to the world. It more radicalized that. The church's pilgrim, the church's servant, the church's thing. So she was very much of that kind of devotional mindset.
Very much just taking what was held within the church and seeing the whole world as the church.
Yeah, she didn't see the whole world as church. She saw the world as lost, secular people.
Yes.
So they were the remnant, but she would pray for the world.
But in the Second Vatican, you're saying that they very much wanted that devotion to spread.
Pope Leo renewed it again. God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son. And she loved the world in praying for people. See, she felt very connected to people this way through prayer. There's another thing about her, I think, too, is that we all grow up with an internalized set of assumptions that have limitations, but somehow grace serves as the context to transcend those assumptions. You see that in her, we'll be looking at that too. That's very big in her also. Like we outgrow internalized assumptions, but then what we outgrow, we're wise for the lessons we learned when we were in the compromised place.
Yes, it's amazing the way God's presence breaks through bad theology or old ways of looking at the world.
Like Thomas Merton said, he was talking to the monks. He said, you may think you're holy because when you get up in the morning to chant the psalm, you get down on your knees on the floor and you make the sign of the cross 10 times with your tongue on the floor. He said, it's not that you're holy, it's that you're odd. See? He would say things like that.
Were you allowed to laugh out loud when he said them?
Oh, yeah. Everybody laughed. He was a very funny person.
That's so great. You didn't just have to laugh in sign language.
Yeah. Well, I tell people, because we didn't use sign language, this was a sign for laugh. So I, as a joke, I tell people that when someone would say something funny, all the monks would sit there and go, they'd laugh in sign language. But in real life, though, they'd laugh out loud.
They would laugh out loud. Yeah.
But I relate to her because I was in a cloistered monastery. I relate to that culture of perpetual silence and seeking God in the Trappist monastery. Yeah. And so what Richard Rohr is doing in the Living School is what Thomas Merton was doing. See, how do we do this in the world? See, that's what we're called to do. We're called to live this deeply interior life in the midst of the realities of the world that we live in. Therese helps us do that.
Why do you think her sister asked her to write out the story of her life? What did she see in Therese?
Thomas Merton, in one of his talks he gave to the novices, is that they were convinced she was a saint. I think what it was, they sensed in her a sense that she was a very present person, unusually so. And they also sensed the depth of which how real God was to her. And they sensed in her a certain holiness. So they thought by writing it out, we'd kind of have it and the world could benefit. And she would share the story of your soul, the self-disclose, the interiority of yourself this way. And I think that was the motivation.
It was very providential that they asked her to get started the year before she got sick. Well, she still had the energy.
Yes, she did. Because they already saw that about her. And by the way, the fact they doted on her, I think when she got in the monastery, they mystically doted on her. They thought she was just the gem. And it turns out she was, actually.
Yeah. How lovely to be able to enter the monastery with your real sisters living there.
Yeah.
In a way, she set herself up for life with the mother that she always needed. Yeah. Amazing how circumstances can shift to support us in unexpected ways.
And another big thing we'll look at as we walk through her life is she saw herself as the little flower, then as the child Jesus. And she had her older sisters. She saw as mothers. And now in her mystical awakening, she's like a mother to us.
Mm.
There's like a motherly magnitude about her presence. You know what I mean? Like she mothers us
Yes.
in the sense of helping us experience God's love in our life and so on.
What's quite striking about her writing is how obviously well she knows Scripture and how devoted she is to Jesus. It's like there's a real sense of Scripture being alive in her and kind of really forming her and helping her see the world, as well as her relationship with Jesus seems just so present and real. I'm guessing part of that came up in the way she was educated, that she, from a young age, she was learning Scripture.
Yes, she was. But I would say something else too, and I say this being in the monastery, is that she was chanting the Psalms for us. But also in the monastery is how to read Scripture contemplatively. That is one way I thought of it when I was in the monastery. When we read the Gospels, the person writing the Gospel was writing the Gospel so that we might see in Jesus who the author saw in Jesus. And who they saw in Jesus was God as mercy. It's like the ocean, infinite mercy of an infinitely loved world with broken people. There was this contemplative origin called like the deeper meaning. There was this deeper inner meaning of Scripture, not as proof text, but as the presence of God revealed in the mercy of Jesus. And that was very vibrant to her. It was very central to her life and who she was.
Yeah, it really comes through her writing.
Yeah.
And Jim, would she have read Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross in the monastery?
She knew them well.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I tried to find it. She says somewhere she spent over 2 years reading nothing but John of the Cross.
Oh, wow.
So she was very taken by them. She internalized that. Therese is grounded in the mystical presence of Jesus, embodied in the lives and in the teachings of Saint Thérèse of Avila and Saint John of the Cross, who in the 16th century founded the Discalced Carmelite order that Therese belonged to. You know, she's in a heritage of mystical awakening.
Yeah, beautiful. And St. John of the Cross came in handy for her with her illness, I'm sure.
She did it through the dark night. Big time, yeah, exactly.
And Jim, you talked about how after her death, her book became so popular in multiple languages, and then this pilgrimage where thousands and thousands of people came out to witness her. Why do you think people love her so much? What do you sense about that book?
I want to speak from my own personal experience. In the Turning to the Mystics podcast, each of these mystics were mystics that I was introduced to as a monk in the monastery by Thomas Merton. And each one affected me in its own, has been very much with me. That's what we're sharing in the podcast. So Thomas Merton talked about Therese. He had a devotion to Therese. So when I read her, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with the people, the thing about her, what moved me about her, I think, she had this sense that we're not trying to strive to reach the lofty heights of God, but rather the lofty heights of God has descended into the holiness of our littleness. It's actually our littleness that incarnates the lofty heights of God. And so it isn't as if we're trying to ascend to something. We're trying to drop down into what's infinitely there in the ordinariness of ourselves. So she called it the little way. I was so very taken by it. And also the sense of love, this bhakti, this love energy. We see it in Teresa too, and in St. John of the Cross, also these nuptial mystics. You see that in her. And that's why Thomas Merton gave me a relic of her. It was a little gold relic with some wisps of her hair, and I kept it pinned over my heart under my scapular. It was just a sense of devotional oneness with her. Because what I'm doing, I was soaking it up again as I was preparing for all this again, like renewing this, the depth and beauty of her teachings. Because if I can share what are the ways that she has so intimately touched me in helping me in my search for God, I hope by I share it, and the people that are listening to all this and watching it, it'll help them to how it touches them. And that's how the heritage is handed on from heart to heart, I think. It's the intimacy of it, and that's what struck me.
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about Thomas Merton giving you the relic. Can you tell me about the context and your memory of him giving you that gift?
Yes, Merton was always in spiritual direction. He was very big on spiritual maturity like this, and he was always calling me out on it. But he also saw the spiritual maturity as almost a childlike devotional sincerity. That sometimes we try to approach it so mature, we go right past it. instead of where St. John of the Cross says to have no light to guide you except the one that burns in your heart. And it burns with a sincerity. So what is the intimacy of our devotional sincerity? He always encouraged me to honor that, being unraveled by the closeness of this love that we can't explain, but we intimately live by.
And so was it that you were so touched by Saint Thérèse of Lisieux that he gave you the relic, or?
Yeah, he gave it to me. Now, when I left, I gave it back. I don't remember giving it back, but but apparently I did because I don't have it, unfortunately. But anyway, it was like a sacramental to me.
Yeah,
And that's why I admire this picture.
I love the picture you're holding up that you have of her, because she's holding a big bouquet of flowers.
That's right.
And she had a big insight through the sense of flowers, didn't she?
She really did. We're going to see in the very first thing she said, she was really wondering why God chooses some people and raises them up like spiritual giants, like St. Paul, St. Augustine, and so on. And she so many others not. And then it dawned on her, it's true that if the whole world was nothing but orchids, the world would lose some of its beauty when you go out into the fields where there's thousands and thousands of wildflowers and the smell of violets. And she said, I'm one of those little flowers. That's why she's called the little flower. It's almost like the divinity of the littleness this way, which is going to deepen then when it becomes the littleness of a child. She took the name of the child, Jesus. And so that's in the picture where she's holding roses. Because she says, when I die, I'm going to continue helping souls in heaven. So I believe that when we're sharing these reflections, she's helping us because she's touching our heart. One of the monks told me, he said in a confession about her, he said, if you can get past the perfume bottles and the rose petals, she's quite deep. But she's so, her style is so flowery, you know. But it was just the context of the times where she was.
Yeah.
It was real to her. It was very real.
It was very real. Yeah. Did you take comfort in the sense of ordinariness? Did you feel yourself ordinary in the monastery, or?
Yes, because what I think monastic life, see what cloistered monastic life is, there's no active ministry. You don't have a wife, you don't have children, you don't have a career, you don't have a ministry, you don't help in parishes, you don't teach in schools, and so on. You just live the anonymity of God in endless ordinariness. And you get up at 2:30 in the morning to get started. Yeah. Chanting the Psalms and living the whole day in silence. So it's like dropping down. Thomas Merton once said in the monastery, he said, why have we come here? He said, we've come here to live. And by live, he says, just life. We tend to project our life in what we do and what we have and where we are. But what is the divinity of the immediacy of the miracle of our life? And the monk kind of lives in that bareness of this. And she does this. And I think this is what we're called to find in the world. And we have to live in the world. You know, it's our life. But how can we find incarnate in the complexities of the day an interior underlying simplicity of the rhythms of the divinity of the ordinariness, of standing up and sitting down, taking a sip of water like that?
You said, Jim, that she wrote in the story of her life, or the story of her soul, that she planned to continue to help people from heaven after she'd passed. And for those of us who didn't grow up with saints as a part of our religious context, this is the job of a saint, is it, to continue to help people?
And really, it's the communion of saints. So when people die and cross over in death, they're not annihilated, they're consummated. In God, we live and move and have our being. We're living our life in the vast interiority of God. And so the communion of saints, in crossing over, the saints are still aware of us, and they still love us. And that's devotional sincerity to the saint. We pray to the saint that they hear us. And all the saints hear us. And so we're trying to be open to kind of an openness that includes and transcends birth and death, time and eternity.
Heaven is a separate place from...
Yeah, here's another way that I put it, is that in God we live and move, we have our being. So us talking here like this right now is celestial. The infinite presence of God is presencing itself as a mystery of art of this, but we don't see it except that it's veiled. See, it's veiled as insight, it's veiled as consolation, it's veiled. So when we die and cross over, it's eternally unveiled. So what mysticism is that God decides not to wait until we're dead to give us unveiled. But God gives us unveiled in a veiled way. It's obscure. And so all these saints have this delicacy about them, like this unveiled intimacy ribboned through the veils of the day.
So it's almost like they're already speaking from so-called heaven.
That's right.
In a way. Well, they're here so we can continue to read their words.
That's right.
After they've passed and feel that closeness to God.
That's exactly right. And the big thing is we'll be joining them soon enough. You know what I'm trying to say? It's not like, and then we'll be, and this has been going on and on and on. And so, we're on this earth, we're exiled out of the depths of God, hidden with Christ and God before the origins of the universe. We're on this earth for a very short time, really basically to learn how to love. And then when we die, God inhales and the breath, it completes itself. And so this celestial and the earthly and the time and eternity is all spiritually interwoven. And she helps us cultivate that.
Are you planning to continue to help us after you're gone, Jim?
I am. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That'd be great. We'll really need it. We'll really need it then.
Yeah, sure. Of course. And by the way, but the same is true of you, with all of us. We're not used to thinking of ourselves like this. We're going to cross over into God. And the people we love now, we'll still love them and care for them. And we'll care for all of you because we'll be loving them with God's love.
Yeah. You said the relic that Thomas Merton gave you was a lock of Saint Therese's hair.
Yeah, wisp of her hair.
Yeah. You have a lot of hair, Jim. You could leave a lot of...
You know what, I could. If I'm canonized, there'll be a vast distribution of hair that people can walk around, have it on an altar in their home with a candle burning in front of it.
Be millions of people with your hair.
Yeah. It's too silly, but I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
When Merton died, I was given some of his books in the Hermitage. And also, I was given his bookmark and his breviary. I have it over here. And I was also given his swimming trunks that he took with him to Bangkok. So I tell people, I'm not saying that if you'd come visit me in my home, you'd see a little shrine off in the corner with the swimming trunks hanging there with the candle burning, and you could make a visit to the trunks. But then I say, but there's something about those trunks. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing them now. That's where all my power comes from. Take the trunks off, I can't say a word.
That's too good.
It is so good.
Well, feel free to leave me your swimming trunks then, Jim. Pass them on. Pass them on. Merton's trunks. Pass them on. I'll take some of the magic.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, anything else we want to say about Saint Thérèse of Lisieux? She died very tragically in the end, very painfully.
As a matter of fact, I think the power of the third manuscript is she shows how the love is ribboned and infused through suffering. You know what it's like when people can't breathe? See, today people on a respirator.
Yeah.
So she literally was suffocating.
Oh my gosh.
And she also said she lost her sense of God. Utter loss is how she died. Except just as she was dying, she had an ecstasy and fell back on her pillow and died. So she spent her whole life and ended. So there's something about, the mystery of utter loss and suffering and the love that's present in it. It's the mystery of the cross, the mystery of love crucified. It's very touching. And in the manuscript that we give Father John Clark, who translated it,
yes,
there's a lovely epilogue with a lot of lovely stories about the people who knew her and about her, some lovely insights into her. I'm just so looking forward to sharing this with people.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it, to listening to it and dialoguing with you, Jim. On that note, let's talk about the books you'll be using. One is Story of a Soul, the autobiography of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. It's the third edition, translated from the original manuscripts by John Clark.
That's right. Institute of Carmelite Studies, ICS, and you're holding it up. That's what it looks like. It's beautiful. Yes. Very well done. There's lovely pictures in there, too, of her.
Yes, there's lovely. That's a nice thing. She's having someone more modern day. Yes. You can see her really well. Also, Jim, you'll be using this book, Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, Essential Writings, selected with an introduction by Mary Frolick. This book here.
That's right. And Mary Frolick is a really contemplative scholar. She's so Bernard Lonergan. I so admire. She's a nun. I so admire her so much. But it's a very insightful, lovely written book that kind of goes to the heart of Therese. So I'll be drawing from both of those sources, but mainly, almost always, from the text itself, from the story of
the soul. And Mary Frolick provides her own commentary, so to get another perspective.
Yeah. And she just gives a lot of insights. For example, when I shared the insight about the culture of the time, that's Mary Frolick adds that. So she's, as a scholar, she just researched background information to help kind of enhance our understanding of her.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that kind of context, and
that's right.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. But you'll be reading from Story of a Soul, so when you give page numbers, etc.
I will do. I'll start writing.
If people want to read along,
I'll give the page number, the paragraph, so if they would care to follow it, they can. And I'll walk through that's what I'll do.
And we always put it in the transcript, so it's not necessary to buy the book. But if you'd like the broader writings, then it's a wonderful read. Well, I think that's a great start for season 13 and Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. Thanks so much, Jim, and thank you, Dorothy, in the background. And we'll see you next time.
And Kirsten, and thank you for wonderful leading questions to kind of draw all this out like this. It was nice. It was good.
Thank you, Jim. We'll see everyone next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Turning to the Mystics, a podcast created by the Center for Action and Contemplation. We're planning to do episodes that answer your questions. So if you have a question, please email us at podcasts@cac.org or send us a voicemail. All this information can be found in the show notes. We'll see you again soon.
Do you feel called to walk a more contemplative path? The Center for Action and Contemplation is an educational nonprofit supporting the journey of inner transformation. Our programs and resources will help grow your consciousness, deepen your prayer practice, and strengthen your compassionate engagement with the world. Learn more about our resources, such as publications, podcasts, email series, and events at www.cac.org.